Designing a course. Having gathered the data from the needs analysis about the learner's needs, pedagogical, business, and communication needs, the next important step is to now interpret this data, design a course, and to choose appropriate materials. Course design is the process through which this raw data, which we have gathered through the needs analysis, is interpreted in order to produce a series of teaching and learning experiences which aim to lead the student towards a particular state of knowledge. Traditionally, a needs analysis has a direct influence on the course design and influences the development of the syllabus, the materials, their development and selection, the methodology which the trainer is going to use, and the evaluation process. The aims and objectives are a useful place where to start the course design. However, care is needed while you are interpreting the data and turning it into the course objectives and aims, because there is no direct transfer of needs into aims. It is not a direct process, and there are several layers of interpretations which have to be done. Then there is a conflict between the areas, what the learner perceives his lacks to be and what the data analysis tells his needs to be. There are external constraints also in terms of availability of classroom space, in terms of the availability of time. Aims are journal statements about why the course is happening. Examples are: the aim of this course is to improve email writing skills. Participants will learn how to write emails, and the course aims to cover all types of. So you can see here that these are not written in specific terms. Needs analysis is, however, directly related to designing a business English course, and there is a certain amount of specificity which is seen here in the course design, because pedagogically, business English belongs to the ESP umbrella. So as in terms of the content of the course, in terms of the language which has to be used and taught, and in terms of communication as well as the training style, business English comes under ESP. There are several approaches which can be applied while designing a course. First of all, there is the language-centered course design, which sees a direct connection between the analysis of the target situation and the course contents. The learner is used here to identify the target situation, and then systematically through the data interpretation, through a series of systematically, the data is analyzed and the courses and aims and objectives are written down. However, this approach has got its weakness, and one of the main weaknesses is that it remains restricted to the area which has been identified through the learner about the target situation. And therefore, it fails to teach anything beyond that restricted area, which is unlike a general English course. Then it fails to recognize that learners are people and they do not learn in a systematic manner, and their needs might change as the course progresses. Then also that learning is not a straightforward logical process. Just by systematically presenting the data and systematically presenting the steps of the course design, you do not expect learners that they will also learn systematically. Then it is a static and inflexible system which does not allow for any errors or any renegotiation of the course items of the course design. So any course design has to have flexibility, it has to have a feedback system and of tolerance of errors. And then it ignores other factors which are very important for a business English course, as for all ESP courses, that the materials should be interesting. The next approach is the skill-centered course design, which aims to help the learners to develop their skills and strategies, which will continue to develop even after the course has finished. So it enables the learner to become the processors of linguistic information and not just the receivers of a language as an entity. So they look at the learner as a user of a language, not only as a learner of a language. It writes in the skill-centered approach, the objectives are written in very general terms so that students can at least pass some of it. Next comes the learning center approach, which, as opposed to the learner center approach, the learner-centered approach, which sees as the learning as totally determined by the learner, with his motivation and his previous knowledge playing a dominant role. The learning-centered approach sees that the learner is not the only factor in the teaching situation. The context and the teacher also have to play an important role. Then it seeks to maximize the potential of the learning situation. It tries to look at how people acquire the competence to use language, and it acknowledges the complexity of the learning situation. So a language-centered approach looks at the nature of the target language situation. The skill-centered approach looks at how language is processed to perform different tasks. And the learning-centered approach looks at how competence is achieved. So the course designing process must be dynamic and interactive. It is not something which is static and inflexible. All the factors which are related to the learning environment have to be considered: the learner, the teacher, and the environment. And this acknowledges the complexity of the learning situation. So far, we have learned that the learning-centered approach maximizes the potential of the learning situation.